Welcome to the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Here we are, the boys are back again over the holidays. Little holiday break before we get into the nitty gritty of conference play. Kai here with Jim, with Matt. Fellas, how you guys doing? We're live on the YouTube, of course.
Hi, I'm
Jim.
great. Good to see you back in old STL with your generic mystery background. We don't get to actually see where you are. Folks, you're missing out.
Ooh.
Kai's mansion in the background. He's got his view overlooking the city on the bluffs. Matthew, how are you doing? I'm in a very cold apartment, so I'm kind of snuggled up.
Yeah, I got my heat cranked up to 75, but like it doesn't ever actually get that hot because it's cold and the cold air seeps in. It's like it maxed out at 72. So doing that usual Chicago thing. We have a polar vortex warning, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but yeah, we should be headed toward a pretty brutal winter. I'm actually going to buy myself a new coat, Kai,
It's
tomorrow,
good.
maybe tonight if I get a little bit antsy. So yeah, pretty big weekend lined up for the big boy this weekend for me. So a Christmas gift to myself.
St. Louis is actually going to be quite tepid over the holidays here. So we're looking at the 40s, maybe some
Well, cheers
50s.
to that.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's fun. Yeah, this is our podcast. Welcome. Best Bet Show is this Saturday. Although, should we do Saturday, fellas? I guess we can talk about that. Maybe it's Friday. Maybe it's Saturday. We'll see. Probably
Stay on your
Saturday.
toes, audience.
Yeah,
Probably
Follow us on
Saturday.
Twitter. Stay on your toes.
I'm leaning Friday because of the
Oh,
games.
Friday.
But again, we will discuss.
Okay.
We'll discuss.
Yeah, a pretty classic episode for you today if you're familiar with the podcast. Roots Roundup. Go through some stuff we saw in the Weave Saw That section, some three-man thoughts, and some game previews to wrap it all up. And of course, we moved our review section to the end of the podcast, so stay tuned for that. I'm pretty sure I missed a bunch of reviews the last few weeks. We might have talked about them, we might have not. Doesn't matter. We're gonna cover them at the end of the show. Some good questions in there, some good conversation. So stick around at the end of
That's
the
what happens
episode.
when you don't audit the auditor, Kai.
That's
You
what
miss
happens.
some reviews. That's
I
it.
blame the system I pull it from. I'm just going to pass the buck on that one. Do follow us on Twitter, Instagram, 3MW underscore CBB. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, please, please, please. Three Man Weave is the YouTube channel. Trying to build that up, trying to bring the Best Bet show back on a more regular basis. And that's it, fellas, for the intro, really. Again, you can still buy the almanac. We've said it a few times. CBBalmanac.com, the best college basketball resource, preview magazine, even though we're halfway through the season, that you can get on the market. Still very useful for conference play, a good holiday gift. So check that out at CBBalmanac.com. Let's get
Yeah,
into
Kai,
the
if you
show.
want
Yeah, Jim.
if you want a place to see what these how these new transfers could be relevant, most, if not all, of those previews are written as if the guy is eligible, here's what he could bring. Whereas, maybe other places just completely disregarded the guy and threw him out. Almanac's actually got that. So yes, definitely check that out. But Kai, to your point, it's time to round it up.
Let's do it, Jim.
We're talking news and notes. Before we do, we got to give a shout out to the booming, growing empire that is CBB Analytics continues to take over the college basketball stats world. Kai, I love it. I love to see it.
CBBanalytics.com, the best 30,000 foot view of the numbers in college hoops. Several D1 staffs use it to scout their team, their opponents in the upcoming games. It's a useful website for everybody from sports betting to a casual college basketball fan to a diehard college basketball fan. If you are a college basketball lover, this is a great website for you. The visualization you can do with all the data, the different things you can slice, the data insights you can slice is really top notch. And you can get $40 off your subscription by using our code WEAVE, WEAVE, when you check it out. Matthew, you're a huge fan of this website. What do you think?
Not only am I a huge fan, Kai, I'm going to weave it into our weave
Weave.
section of today's podcast. Yes, I have an entire broadcasted messages made possible by the insights that were illuminated to me by CBB Analytics. So yeah, buy the damn thing. It's awesome. It's Ken Palm, Mark Torvik, CBB Analytics. Like boom, boom, boom. It's in the holy grail right now of my
That's
always open for way too long
high
tab
praise.
sphere. Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for you gospel
Yes.
fans out there. That's,
Yes.
that's what Matt's got fired up. All right. News and notes. Yeah, the key headline, everybody's playing. Everybody's eligible at least until December 27th, and the NCAA cannot punish those people who do choose to play. It's not going to be a lost year of eligibility. I think the general feeling in I think Will Wade was the most explicit in saying so, was that the NCAA is going to lose again in court on the 27th, and all these guys will remain eligible. There's no major concern about that really. And you've seen like every 4 or 5 teams, there's one that a new guy pops up and makes a huge impact from, way up top in the country down to a UT Arlington with Philip Russell, et cetera, et cetera. There's just always some new little tidbits to notice there with this massive change. Yeah, and Kai, the Wade presser was ridiculous. I mean, he just completely destroyed the NCAA. Obviously, he has a bone to pick with the NCAA, given some of his historical troubles with them, run-ins. But man, it just kind of seems like he's right. The only thing I'm hesitant about here is the more we dunk on the NCAA, does it kill the NCAA tournament? Because again, it's run by
Yeah.
the NCAA.
Yep, that is the only concern, Jim. You would think that people around college basketball, whoever the powers would be if the NCAA folded, would realize how great the tournament is and would keep it status quo. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but hopefully that stays the same. You're right. That is the major concern.
Yeah, if we just completely defund the NCAA, then suddenly,
Yeah.
boom. Who organizes the tournament? Who steps into that void?
Hey, can
I
our
don't
white
know.
knight be David Warlock, who I feel like is the only person with any sort
Yeah,
of
he's
with any
fantastic.
ounce of respect and dignity and intelligence that comes out of that group? I know he's a loyal crony to his employer, but it'd be awesome if he could sort of be that beacon. I mean, if he did that, if he actually formed a tournament outside the NCAA's round that was successful, that kind of like was the hard sever of like separation from college basketball to the NCAA, and Warlock led that charge. I mean, I'd put him on Mount Rushmore of college hoops, Hall of Fame, all that stuff. So David, it's a challenge to you. Take it on for
Yeah,
us, for the people.
let's anoint him the man. He's going to schedule everything. Yeah, no, we love Mr. Warlock. Nothing in recruiting news. Just excited to see that. No 2024 commits, no 25 commits. Transfers, again, nothing to say. Everyone can play. So, yeah, there's nobody newly eligible. One maybe minor thing of note, Naquan Tomlin. They said in the broadcast last night against Virginia that he's just waiting for one grade to be posted at Kansas State, and then he should be eligible right away. So, not waiting until second semester starts for Memphis. Apparently, he'll be good to go as soon as his full graduation is verified at K State. Injuries, though, we have a couple Achilles tears to talk about. Major bummer for Houston, number one team in the country per Kenny Pomeroy. Terrence Arsenault out, and I think this really matters, Kai. I mean, they're really predicated on their defense, how disruptive they are, length, speed, and he is all of that incarnate. He is a terror all over the court, and unfortunately, he is out for the year. How does this impact your view of the Cougars?
I mean, it doesn't hugely impact my view of them. I still think they're awesome, top five team even without him. It's just a shame that we've seen them pretty much get hurt every single year. I want to say they've had a major guy out every single season, and we've never really seen their true full strength come tournament time. And they still do really well in the tournament. It sucks for Arsenault. It sucks for Houston, for Sampson, but still a really good team. Still going to be fighting for a 1 or a 2 seed come March.
Yep, definitely agree. Are they the favorite in the Big 12, Kai?
I still think they are. Yes.
Okay,
I
Matt,
agree.
do you?
I
You do?
concur.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
do.
right. The other end of the spectrum, a team that's not the favorite in its conference. In fact, they're the heavy favorite to finish last. Vanderbilt loses Colin Smith to a torn Achilles of his own. We're going to get to Vandy in we've saw that, but it is full-blown panic mode time in Nashville. It seemed like maybe once they got all their guards healthy, they would look better, but now they're missing all their bigs with Van Allen Lubin out and Smith out for the year. Matt, is this Stackhouse's last year just as maybe he doesn't get fired, but does he just kind of say sayonara to this attempt?
Yeah, it feels like he has a lot of NBA opportunities circulating, and I think it's an obvious transition for him. College is annoying to a lot of coaches, especially see some of the frustration at schools like, I know Virginia's NIL isn't all the way great. Tony Bennett, I think, is frustrated with that. Mick Cronin loudly voiced his frustration. Yeah, especially if you're at the latter end of a relatively, tumultuous era, high academic school, not the NIL that your other competitors have. You have opportunities waiting for you in the NBA. Just like put all, add it all up. And I feel like, he just probably moves on in the next 12 months, whether it's by force of someone else's hand or by force of his own.
Yeah, it does feel like it's kind of playing out the string this year, and I worry that Vandy really fades into oblivion the rest of the season as a result.
Yep.
Suspensions, dismissals. This particular player, Femi Odekale at New Mexico State, has not actually been suspended or dismissed. There were some rumors of it. Then suddenly he appeared off the bench last night at Stephen F. Austin and promptly got ejected in the second half. So I don't really know what's going on with this saga. Kai, if you have mega clarity for me, please provide it.
I started to kind of perpetuate those rumors. I mentioned this yesterday publicly. I saw on the fan forums that he had removed the New Mexico State tab from his Instagram handle, Kai, which is obviously a huge red flag in the in the social media sphere. But yeah, I have no actual fact update here. Just all pure hearsay from me.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess my uneducated thought here is, hey, if you're on thin ice, which he might have been, getting ejected in the next game after all of the hubbub is pretty funny to me. Maybe he's a bit of a head case, Jim. We don't know, but maybe he is.
He sparked his team's run though, Kai. A little bit of a flurry late there after the tech and the ejection.
Maybe
aided heavily by Stephen F. Austin's just complete inability to hold any sort of lead. But I digress.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of it for Roots Roundup, guys. It gets a lot shorter when we don't have to discuss transfers, don't have to discuss recruits, which Kai means we have a lot more time to discuss ball and the games that were this past week, and we saw a lot.
We saw that as the next section here. Yeah, let's run through some stuff, guys. A pretty healthy section for today's pod. A couple player crazy happenings. Kevin Cross. If you guys watched the Furman game, first of all, one of the craziest games all season. Furman came back from down 16. Tulane was dominating them. Got up by 3. At the end of the game, it was over. Hit a last second shot. They basically waved to the crowd. It was over. Tulane inbounds the ball. Kevin Cross shoots a 3, gets fouled on the 3 with 0.4 seconds left. Goes to the line, hits all 3 free throws, which is as impressive. Anyways, double overtime. Eventually, Tulane covers -6 in overtime. So, absolutely crazy. But Kevin Cross, 25 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists, 6 steals in that game, Matt. Pretty good little player. I didn't realize he really is their point forward. He brings the ball up most possessions.
Yeah, he's terrific. And Hunter was waxing poetic about how important he was last season. Fun player. What's not that fun is seeing teams with perceived intelligence, a la Furman, coached by one of our favorites, Bob Ritchie, a la Yale, coached by one of our other favorites, and James Jones. Very, very, very smart teams fouling other teams in just brutal situations and costing them basketball games. If the best, the brightest in the room aren't doing the right thing, the rest of the college landscape has no hope. I've sort of given up expecting proper behavior when your team's down 3 and you just either need to not foul or foul early in the shot clock and put guys to the line. I've just my expectation bar has been lowered. It just must be really hard to teach 18, 20-year-old kids to do it effectively. That's the excuse I'm giving to all coaches. I don't know what else to say at this point. I've seen it happen too much. It continuously fails my expectations, and I'm bothered by it, and I'm not going to sweat about it anymore.
It was, to be fair to Furman, it was an insane play. There's no way that's possible. what happened? But
it was a foul, right? Witt was on him. He kind of put his arms over. It's get off him, Carter-Wade. What are you doing? Yeah. It's a.
Speaking of absolutely insane and impossible, and we felt the sting of this one as backers of Louisiana Tech, Terrence Hargrove for SLU scored 11 points in 28 seconds to stun the Bulldogs. They were up by, Louisiana Tech was up by 6 with 28 seconds-ish, 30 seconds. Kim Palm, about 99% chance of winning, and Hargrove scored 11 points in half a minute. Jim, it's like Reggie Miller time for him. Insane.
Yeah, the one that came back to me was Tracy McGrady, 13 points in 33 seconds. It's this is better, arguably, or just about as good. Insane. I believe he had an and 1 3 and then a buzzer beating 3 to actually win. Yeah. Put the team on his back, Kai. Is there a better example of putting the team on your back than 11 points by yourself in the final 28 seconds? It's insane.
I'm tired of fading SLU also.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I know there's a lot of momentum for the whole Travis Ford flaming out experiment. I'm happy there's a little bit of punch to that team, despite a lot of injuries. Gibson Jimerson out there still battling. I know he's not 100% healthy. He's guarding the other team's best player. He's scoring. I like Little Hart. It's not going anywhere, and maybe it just drags out. It doesn't. I know it's probably you want to you probably want to tank and lose badly to kind of reset the button. Fair. I like what I'm seeing in the near term. Probably the worst thing you want to hear if you're a SLU fan. I'm sorry for even like exasperating this take, but
Yeah, I think
it's encouraging to see.
that's got to be where they're at. Is like we've seen this guy with his best roster and it wasn't that good. Okay, now he has probably one of his worst rosters, and they're again just kind of that feisty like underdog type.
They're not bad enough. They're just not bad enough.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But we know the ceiling, and I think SLU with the way that program is funded probably dreams of a higher ceiling than what has been displayed.
Yeah, Kai, they're a few possessions away from having wins over Drake, Hofstra, and Louisiana Tech, the form which would have been at home. They actually got the last
they beat
two.
Louisiana
Then,
Tech, yeah.
Yeah, won the last two, Louisiana Tech and Hofstra. And then they were right there with Utah State too. I mean, I know not like marquee wins, but you get those two wins, Drake and Utah State, and something that's like, okay, pretty decent resume heading into A10 play with a pretty wide open A10 this year.
And then finally, two more. Trey Bonham, a buzzer beater from half court for Chattanooga to beat Gardner-Webb. Incredible shot. And then Portland State, third buzzer beater win of the year at Fresno, a 10-0 overtime run. They got down by a ton in overtime with 2 minutes left, 10-0 run, win the game, cap it with a buzzer beater. College basketball is incredible just for stuff like this that happens. This seems to happen with regularity.
That team is ridiculous. They had two game winners from Habib. You had like a coast-to-coast layup game winner and then a half quarter at Cal Baptist. The layup was like against crosstown rival Portland. Now they get this one at Fresno. Like some teams just find a way, I guess, or are lucky, but don't let Portland State fans hear me saying that.
Yeah. Going into interesting power conference results, and should we read into them? And there's a couple questions in the chat also. This kind of fits pretty well into some of their discussions here. UConn, they toyed with Gonzaga. They rock. There's a question in the chat about if Seton Hall was a good bet against Gonzaga tonight. Obviously, this won't hold up with the podcast. And there's also a question about Gonzaga. Will they get a Q1 win in the non-con? I guess, Jim, the answer to Gonzaga is probably not. And I'm done fading UConn the rest of the year. I promise.
Yeah, I don't think Gonzaga has a chance at a Q1 win. Because San Diego State at home is probably not going to be top 30 in the net. Unlikely. I guess they have Kentucky on the road in February. Like the very weirdly placed game that they could potentially sneak one. They're in the middle of the WCC doldrums, whereas Kentucky's in the grind of an SEC schedule. Maybe that's the one. But yeah, I think this Gonzaga team's just back down to like kind of 5 seed, 4 seed territory. They don't have the size, playmaking on the wing, depth in the backcourt. Kind of selling Gonzaga a little bit at this point.
Michigan State.
Sorry, that's all I had to say.
No. Michigan State absolutely bludgeoned Baylor, spewing, of course, or starting a bunch of hot takes in the media once again about top teams in the country. But Matt, are you thinking Michigan State is back? Do you agree with the overreaction? I guess snap overreaction to them being back.
I don't know. They're heading in the right direction, but like it's step 2 of 10 that team needs to take to prove it to me. Unfortunately, when we get to Big Ten play, you won't be able to prove much to me at all, honestly. So
yes.
You have a few matchups there where I'll be like, oh, okay, I buy it. But yeah, it's going to be another year where I think the Big Ten is going to be taken with a grain of salt until the old month of March rolls around.
Hey, speaking
Better
of the
team when they make shots, Kai. They are 17 of 33 from 3 in the last 2 games. Only 8 of 12 against Baylor. They didn't really need to take a ton of threes.
Yeah.
But the probably more notable outcome or development is that AJ Hoggard, 12 assists, 4 turnovers over the last 2 games. He's starting to look a little more like himself, giving them a little bit of off the bounce rim pressure. Maybe that starts to tick Michigan State up.
Yeah. Hey, shooting cures all. That's the magic saying. And speaking of the Big Ten, Purdue beat Arizona, and it was an impressive game for them. They shot the ball, the cover off the ball. Their guards played amazing. Jim, the best team in the country is?
I think I'm probably in trouble if I say anything but Purdue at this point. But I still think Arizona's right there.
Yeah.
Somebody kind of griped back at me when I tweeted about how incredibly Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer played. They're like, well, Caleb Love and Keyshawn Johnson both had career highs too. It's like, all right,
always what about?
That. Yeah. What I was trying to say was that there was always concern about Purdue against this level of athleticism, and can they get, especially from both of those guys on the same night, and both of them just made huge play after huge play, tough shot after tough shot. It was incredible to see. I'm sure no one really cares until Purdue wins 4 games in the NCAA tournament, goes to the Final Four, but
Right.
I don't know what else they can prove right now.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm pleading the fifth. I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm not taking questions about the top team in the country. My
Yeah.
model's still running. The numbers are still being crunched behind the scenes. But I think what Jim just said, I'll leave it at that. I agree. Purdue can't really prove much more at this point. So,
Matt, how about Kansas State? Nebraska smoked them at the Octagon. One of the most eye-opening results I
the
saw.
mayor is back.
Yeah,
The mayor is back.
you're
That's my
buying
take on
stock?
this angle.
You're
Yeah,
buying
I'm in on the
stock
Spurs.
in
But
Nebraska.
K-State, as you're implying, K-State, Jerome Tang, I saw, he says he swears to get this thing. He vows
He doesn't
to
swear.
get it turned around. Sorry, he just thank you.
He's not a swearing man.
He vows to get it turned around. Are you buying that at all?
Yeah, I buy that.
Taylor
I
Perry's
buy-
too good. Jerome Tang's too good. Yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just Kai, we're gonna get to another pathetic second half effort when we get to our bye game losses section, but I don't know that K-State gave a single crap about this game. They scored 12 points in the second half. That's worse than a single digit first half to me. Like second half,
it's ridiculous.
you need to be more dialed in. There's always more scoring in the second half, or at least mathematically, there's more scoring in the second half. They were just throwing up brick after brick, zero urgency to try to create stuff via turnovers or pressure. It was weird. I didn't like it at all, especially in front of that crowd in a terrific home court.
Seton Hall killed Mizzou. Boo. That sucked for Jim and I as Mizzou alum. Syracuse smoked Oregon by 20 points on a neutral. Oregon obviously pretty banged up. Had Barthélemy out also. But fellas, these last two, Providence dismantles Marquette. Marquette still has not won at the Dunk since 2019. Matt, is that a hype home spot, or is Providence
Yes.
for real, would you say? Or are you worried about Marquette? Actually, just pick whatever narrative you want to go with from that game.
Well, you mentioned it in the sub headline. Home. Who was at home? Memphis at home against Virginia. I mean, I think the biggest, exhibit A of this, especially in kind of these like weird like non-conference parts of the schedule where like you're not in the dog days of conference play. Like the first time you go on the road for a big conference game, it seems like, especially going to like a big time home environment, the crowd is like extra amped up.
Yeah.
The road team's extra shaky and nervous. The home, like there's just everything's moving against you. I mean, the Indiana KU game, like nothing about that game made me think any better about Indiana. Maybe Trey Galloway, but I think that was so much more about Assembly Hall and what an awesome place that is. Like that was a true. If I'm an IU fan, as I am, I'm like, wow, I feel great about my home court for like the rest of time. I was like, that's an awesome place. I will always have an edge with my team because that place lifts the performance of my team multiple levels above. Nothing about that game made me think IU's any better than they were or KU's worse. But home court in those certain spots just matters a lot. So college basketball is awesome. So I need more home games in these kind of 1v1 exchange year to year, less neutrals. I want more true homes. Thanks,
To your point, Matt, Providence dominant, 2 huge home wins over teams from the Cheese State, Wisconsin and Marquette. Providence played 1 road game, they lost by 21. Like there are massively different performances in these environments, and that's why I love college hoops for that, the way that can swing it.
More of those, yeah.
Memphis destroyed Virginia. Wow. I don't think I saw it coming in that fashion, Matt. I know you were backing Memphis. I'm not sure you expected this type of victory, though. 16 points over Virginia. Thoughts?
No, but I do like to
beat by 23.
23 points. Excuse me.
Shouts to Dan Schmidt, the unofficial czar of Mizzou social media, Twitter sphere, X sphere, pointing out that Javon Clonerly is older than Luka Doncic. It's like kind of a notable thing. Like this is an old team, and Virginia is a deceptively young team. And I think you're seeing the youth start to catch up to the Who's here. Like I think it's a good team, but I think they're going to take some growing pains in the ACC. I'm sure they might squeak their way to like a 13-3. What's it? 20? Is it 20 game schedule or what? 15-5 record and win the
ACC?
league. But
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but it's a young team. Like I think there are real concerns with this UVA team relative to prior great versions.
Shot creation just isn't there. Like they went the final 15 minutes, they scored 12 points, and every one of them felt like a complete struggle. Like mid-range fadeaway, they got a sleazy layup in the final minute off a fast break that thankfully pushed the game over for old Jimbo. But man, it was ugly. They just had no answer for the athleticism, and again, the environment mattered a lot too.
A couple other random news and notes here. So Santa Clara took down Washington State. It wasn't a bye game, but They're now 3-1 against the Pac-12. They beat Oregon, they beat Stanford, they lost to Cal of all teams out of that foursome. So Santa Clara, the Broncos, hat tip to you. I'll do an actual hat tip. There we go. And then Jim, of course, IUPUI. We have to mention this. They're down to 359th in KenPom again. Just awful. just really, really bad. Fourth to last in the country. Jim, everyone thought they were going to be a lot better this year and rise up the ranks in the horizon and compete for a title.
Yeah, I'd like to know where those folks are. And I guess this includes the coaches in the horizon that ranked them the sleeper team. But in 3 years, Matt Crenshaw's team has been better than 6 total teams out of like 1,000. That's really bad. Like they were better than 3 his first year, then they were dead last his first year, and then they've been fourth last the last 2 years. It's ugly. It's ugly, man. They just have not shown any progress. And every time I see a line, I'm like, seems kind of too low because they're one of the worst teams. And unfortunately, the numbers have finally caught up now.
Yeah.
Ron Hunter, good basketball coach, and he's done a nice job at Tulane, obviously. But I think you have to go back and look what he did at IUPUI and what that program's been since he left.
Yep.
Just sort of a Ron Hunter appreciation moment.
Yeah, he made the tournament as like a 13 seed, didn't he?
Oh wait, no, that was Georgia State. Yes.
I think he did both. I think he did both.
Am
I
I
wrong?
think he only made it twice, but like all of his teams were like, I'm looking at KenPom right now. He had
he didn't make the tournament. Maybe I
Made it as a
misspoke.
16 in
once.
2003.
16.
Yeah, 2003. Sorry, but he had like 3 fringe top 100 teams. Like they haven't been anywhere close to that in decades.
And then a quick buy game section here. A little SoCon 2 for Notre Dame lost to Citadel by 20 at home. Goodness gracious. Some Shrewsbury quotes were pretty funny here. First of all, I apologize to anyone that paid money to come watch that effort from that team. The one thing is they at least got to watch one team play hard. Ouch, shots fired. Another quote. This game was over before we even got here. We had no energy in shoot around. We didn't have any energy at practice. That's who this team has been. And then finally, these dudes, Citadel, they get up in the morning and they march, and they have some toughness to them, Shrewsbury said. We don't have toughness. Matt, from a coach we love, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually want to make a Citadel point here in parallel to Notre Dame. Like, love love Shrewsbury, love all those takes there. I do feel like it's so hard to get kids into Notre Dame transfer wise. I recognize that Citadel has 2 really good players who are transfers. One of which is from Vanderbilt, the other which is from Presbyterian. I think those were special circumstances. One of those at least, with
They
like a
also have
connection.
a Notre Dame transfer.
And then, right, thank you. I was like, there was one more good. Like I think Micah could have maybe gotten at least 1 or 2 veteran guys to sort of set this program off from a better starting point. I know he went we're building from the ground up, we're doing it the right way, young to old, yada, yada, yada. I just think you have to be a little bit open to at least getting a bridge or 2 transfer, right? I call them bridge transfers, guys that can at least make you competitive and you don't just shoot yourself back 3 steps in year 1. I think he prioritized.
Yeah, I mean, the habits that these guys are learning are not good right now. Like, here's how to lose by 20 in the second. I mean, the lack of urgency in the second half was disgusting. And obviously Shrewsbury called it out, but just like we only could get sort of near the hoop, we'll throw up a crap jumper and just walk back on defense. Like the game was completely decided. They were never going to make a comeback. My question to you guys is, does a quote like this from Shrewsbury, like publicly lambasting his team, does that make you like, oh, this team's sinking ship, panic, 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 or good coach, I trust him to motivate the guys and figure it out?
I think a different coach saying this, Jim, I might say, season's over. I think him saying it, I think it's good. I think he knows what he needs to do, what he needs to say, and it's the right thing from a motivational standpoint. So I'm going to give Shrewsbury benefit of the doubt there.
Does he ground his son going 0-8 or 0 for 8 and doing absolutely nothing?
Yeah,
he's grounded at home.
Julian Roper was out.
He sits in the corner for Christmas morning.
Roper was out. He might be their most important player, but still, they should not have lost by 20 against Citadel. One of those transfers on Citadel is Quentin Malora-Brown, and he's from Vanderbilt. And guess what? They lost to Western Carolina. So Western Carolina's beat Notre Dame and Vanderbilt now this season. Catamounts. Roar. SoCon. Matt. Oh, sorry, Jim. You want to add?
No. This one was. I just kind of feel bad for Vanderbilt. They can't get healthy at all.
No.
Like they have 2 or 3 guys out every single game.
I think the Jerry Stackhouse. Yeah, one of the bigger injury victims the last couple of years. Like, I don't think it's really ever been a point where you can truly assess him as a coach. Like, I'm not going to make excuses for him, but just
Isn't
tough
that
to
kind
give
of
him a
Vandy's
fair.
thing? Like
Yeah,
when Bryce Drew got fired, they lost
that's
Darius
right. And they
Garland for
tossed
like
him.
the whole season,
Yep.
and Dylan Dessou was really banged up and hurt. It's like, man, just hasn't worked out in Nashville.
For Matt here, UCLA lost to Cal State Northridge, CSUN. Now,
Andy Newman and the boys.
we liked
Let's
him against the
go.
spread here, but for them to win
Oh, we
outright
did.
was pretty shocking. Matt's UCLA takes preseason looking pretty prophetic so far. You still like your take, Matt, preseason?
No, I love it, and I love Cronin. It's a great take by me, and Cronin's follow up takes in the NIL stuff were even better. Just basically giving a quasi middle finger to the one of the more apathetic blue blood quote unquote fan bases that exist.
Right.
The fact that they're NIL and just general support. We've always talked about how Polyphilian is a known wine and cheese venue. And I feel bad for saying all this stuff about like the Pac-12 because the people who listen to this podcast are obviously the exceptions to the rule. And God bless you for listening and caring, because so many of your counterparts out there just don't. And I think it's a microcosm of this UCLA program that's sort of behind the eight ball because they can't get elite transfers or players. That's why you're having to take flyers on Euro guys.
It's
And
one down year.
it's one down year, but I'm saying the recruiting for next year is not looking great either. I don't think, is it? Like I think there's going to be
don't
some
think
real
it's
talent question marks.
I don't think it's correct to
Going
say
forward.
they can't get transfers. I mean, look how good Johnny Juzang was, led them to the national title game as a transfer from Kentucky. So I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah, but that was pre NIL peak though. I think in the new battleground where you got to have it's an arms race at the top.
They really
totem
not have
pole.
NIL. They really don't have NIL.
Not what the top other programs do. No, they don't.
Let's just like from now on forever, we are not hyping up a group of international freshmen. It takes time. It just does. Like a Demara, top 5 pick. He is useless. They barely play him. Jan Vide doesn't see the floor.
Don't send me his 8-bit pixel whatever YouTube clips. Like, haha, Matt, do your research. Like, I don't need to do my research. Your evidence was just sent to me, or my evidence was just sent to me by you. Thank you.
NBA draft stuff does not equal college basketball readiness. It just doesn't.
Yep. Well, tales old as time. We'll always get that argument in the preseason.
They're going to be good, by the way. If they all were to stay next year, I actually like those Euro dudes long term. But they're children.
Yes.
They're all
it takes a
children
year.
right now.
Yeah,
they're children.
Finally, I can't believe this was. I guess this was the same day as last week's podcast. Northwestern lost to Chicago State. Hand up. I took Northwestern. I thought there was no way Northwestern would lose outright to Chicago State, but the Cougars just played harder, frankly. And Jim, yeah, the funny part is that every media guy gazzed about on Twitter, Chicago State now has a transitive win over Purdue. Pretty funny.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go through that many steps of this team beat this team beat this team. It's literally one step away from Chicago State knocking off Purdue. Everybody has sort of agreed Purdue is the best team now, and boom, there's Chicago State just saying, we own you. I love it.
Does Chicago State have the best NBA pro prospect in between the two teams? That's probably a reach, but
between Northwestern,
Wesley
Cardette
tested the waters last
Cardette,
summer.
yeah, he's quite good.
He came back and he put a 30 burger on Northwestern. So,
do you count the Bullies? Man, if they were able to play, not a bad team.
What the freshmen that didn't get to
the
play?
rookies.
Yeah, the rookies. Didn't they play literal G League basketball or sort of close to it?
I thought you said buoys, like buoy, like
Bullies. Yeah.
Yeah,
the
like
Bullies,
he has
how do you say
brothers.
their names? I should know how to say their names.
All right, so-ins, we've saw that. Now for some three-man thoughts, but of course first, let's tell you about Home Field Apparel. If you've been living under a rock, Jim is wearing their hoodie right now, their self-branded hoodie. Home Field Apparel is frankly the best. They make the best collegiate apparel in the world from schools of all sizes. We're talking Power 5, we're talking D3, we're talking Colorado School of Mines, we're talking Slippery Rock. All these schools can be yours on a shirt, on a hoodie, some joggers, even some dad hats, which are very cool. Also some bombers. I really want to buy the Mizzou bomber. I got my finger over the trigger. I'm just waiting for the right moment here. It is Christmas season. There's 5 days left. It's not going to get to me in time. But Home Field Apparel does a great job with these wonderful, wonderful pieces of clothing. Go to their website, homefieldapparel.com, shop, buy everything they have, and then use our promo code 3MW at checkout for 15% off. That's Home Field, wear one for the team. And now we go to three-man thoughts, and I want Mr. Jim Root to start us off.
Yes, good. I want to start with a quick one. It's sort of related to some of the surprising results we were talking about. It is just a quick trivia where we're going to discuss one or two teams. The trivia question is, fellas, two teams have 7 combined Q1 and Q2 wins already this season. Can you name them?
2 teams, Jim. 7 Q1, Q2 wins.
One is very expected, one is sort of unexpected.
Purdue is one.
Purdue is one. Correct, Matthew. The other team has played an absolute gauntlet of a schedule starting from day one of the season. It's Memphis. Memphis has 7 Q1 and Q2 wins already. Tennessee, Colorado State, and FAU are second with 5. Nobody else even has 6. We kind of mentioned Memphis, and everybody, Kai, you mentioned people gassing over Chicago State's transitive win over Purdue. I feel like people are losing it over Memphis's age. Like, oh my God, they're bringing in Tomlin now. Everybody's 23, everybody's 22. It's kind of what they were last year also. Very old. Got stuck with a tough matchup in round 1, lost to FAU. Season before that, super tough matchup with Gonzaga in the second round. I think the ceiling's really, really high, especially now that they got Tomlin, another active big guy in there. But David Jones has been so much better than he was at his previous stops. More efficient and more of a winner. The team's really good, Matt. I think we kind of just have to tip the cap that I would say that AAC has 2 top 25 for sure, maybe top 20 teams.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the American Conference, right? And it's a 2-horse race between FAU and Memphis. And for all you see on Twitter about the who's better between FAU and Memphis fans, which is just a really, really vicious debate. It's fun to watch the third party. I think you're both awesome, and I want you both in the tournament. I'm just worried that the conference itself is good enough to trip you up and up a few times to hurt those resumes. But, like kind of that no man's land, enough landmines, but not like SEC Big 12 good where you can go 500 in the league. And that actually helps your resume. So I'm glad that they're both FAU and Memphis have taken care of most of their business, we'd say, in the non-con. So they have a pretty good cushion going into league play where they can both kind of, 15-3, 14-4 in the AAC, both make the semis at the end of the AAC tournament. That's probably getting the tournament. So that's what I want to see both teams in the tournament.
I mean, both resumes are pretty ironclad right now. I would say Memphis is better. Obviously, no Q4 loss like FAU has,
bad loss like you're right.
Yeah, right now they're totally in. Yeah, they've been great.
Yeah, that's it. That's really the thought. I just kind of wanted to say, like, holy crap, Memphis scheduled like crazy and have gone 9-2 against the 10th best schedule. Like they played a SWAC schedule and they're 9-2 against it.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like SWAC level of bouncing around.
Someone did tweet at me, Kai, is Memphis' top 25 team yet? I'm guessing that's like a dig for, I don't know, doubting them. I had them top 25 preseason, but yes, they are. They are a top 25 team. Matthew, your turn. I only have 2 thoughts today, so I'm going you 2 first.
My first thought is the ass men, not Aspen, not the ass man from Seinfeld, the ass men, talking about the assist men, teams that are fantastic passers, sharers of the sugar, Kai. But I did a little slicing and dicing with our friends CBB Analytics, handy dandy filter tool where you can actually sort by assist rate, but then add your own column that also can sort by turnover rate, but turnover rate adjusted for competition, right? This is where I think the advantage of using CBB Analytics is you actually can adjust for competition. So I wanted to isolate teams that are most, assist dependent, or I guess assist friendly. They pass the ball. Most of their buckets, their shots are off assist, but also don't turn the ball over and, throw it away and, kick it in the stands and all that good stuff. So I did a little filter thing. There's basically 15 teams that ranked in the top 50 of assist rate, but also the top 100 of opponent adjusted turnover rate. Kind of the sweet spot of what you want. I'll just write off a few teams here. I think there's a couple here that I want to just bring to light as squads we're probably not taking that seriously for, various reasons, but I think maybe require a second examination as to how legitimate they are long-term. Auburn is number 1 on this list. Northwestern, BYU, Virginia, UConn, Ole Miss, Michigan State, Iowa State, Clemson, UMass, Colorado State, Virginia Tech, Purdue, Tennessee, Lamar. We're not going to talk about Lamar, but it's actually a funny inclusion. Arizona, Utah, Dayton. Key themes here are they all have really good passing big men, and not necessarily like big men they play through, but big men who, when they play for the post, are willing passers out of it, right? Jonai Broom, Auburn, underrated passer. Western, Nicholson, very good passer out of the post when he touched. Obviously, Boo Buie's a big part of that as well. BYU has great passing bigs. Look at like Ole Miss, for example. I think this team has been, I mean, no one wants to talk about them for, that obviously the Chris Beard, stink bomb that comes off when you even talk about that publicly, but they're playing really unselfishly. And then Purdue is known. I think Zach Edey has improved as a passer. They've really worked through the post there. Arizona, Utah, Dayton, three big driven types of programs that go inside out. The big men can share the ball. I just think in the age of, we talked about, last year Almanac was the year of the big, and this year it's definitely still dominated by big guys at the top of the totem pole. Big guys who can also pass, I think is like the next evolution of like dominance and cheat code in the current rendition of the college game. And I think this sort of data exercise proves it. So,
Yeah, a lot of teams try to do it, Matt. This is kind of part of my rant about teams that try to do this without the personnel. It was UMass last year. It's been Northern Iowa this year, for instance. It's trying to use these big guys as passing bigs, but they're not that skilled to get that job done. These teams clearly have it. It's funny, the teams in this list, I mean, 90% of them are really, really good in tournament teams. Then you have Lamar, who has been really scrappy this year, much better than we expected. And then UMass, who is one of the most surprising teams, I think, Jim, for my preseason expectations in the country. It seems to correlate pretty heavily to winning.
Yeah, for sure. I think like you could take a devil's advocate on a few of them, like Virginia, and say their assist rate's high because no one can create a shot.
Exactly.
And so they have to do it. But
Virginia Tech, I would say, in the same boat, Jim. Yeah.
Yep. And I think a lot of people would have said Purdue was like that, but suddenly Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer did, they went bonkers against Arizona. And there's some ways you can dig into it, and no stat is like directly correlated to winning, but I think more or less, like certainly directionally, these are very good numbers for all of these teams, and will continue to bear out the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think the final bow I want to put on this is Auburn, Northwestern, Ole Miss, and Michigan State. Kai, back to your point earlier, is Michigan State back? I think this is kind of one of these as I look about it, and teams that share it well, but also have some dynamism. I think those four are probably teams I'm not taking lightly, but maybe need to take more seriously as second, third weekend type teams.
Yeah, I think Michigan State shooting was their problem. Like this should be their strength. This is their strength, passing and forcing turnover, or taking care of the ball. So yeah, I think they have a shot. Tom Izzo, March, that sort of stuff. Okay,
March.
My thought. Let's stick with the tournament a little bit here. I'm going unexpected at-large resumes. Just going to highlight a couple teams here where they currently sit. Obviously, we're in December. We haven't gotten to conference play yet. But some teams that are sitting pretty, I think, and not necessarily that was the expectation heading into the year. And then some teams with a lot of work to do. And Jim added a nice little section of teams with no chance from the current standing, which is just eye-opening for a couple of these teams. Starting with the unexpectedly good at-large resumes. How about Colorado State, guys? They were on Matt's list there. They're 15th in the net. They're 5-1 Q1, Q2, 2-0 Q1. They have no bad losses. They look like a legit at-large resume team at this point. Princeton, we've talked about in the past, a two-bid Ivy is a dream, and Princeton really could get it done. I kind of worry about them losing a couple in Ivy play. It goes downhill, but right now, top 20 in the net, doesn't mean anything yet, but they're there. 1-1 in Q1 games, and 110th non-con strength of schedule, I think, is really strong. That sort of sets them apart a bit from the other mid to low majors that have a gaudy record, but not necessarily the strength of schedule to back it up. And then Grand Canyon, 33rd in the net, 2-1 Q1, top 100 non-con strength of schedule. Jen, they just got Blackshear back. I'm all the way in on Grand Canyon as an awesome team.
Yeah, they're ridiculous. I mean, we said coming in, like maybe this is a kind of a high major roster, almost very close. And with the way Grant Foster has played as like an actual borderline All-American, everybody else falls in line behind him. Like Ray Harrison was player of the year last year, or nearly WAC player of the year.
I think so.
Jovan Blackshear was preseason WAC player of the year last year before he got hurt. And those are like your second and fifth best players compared to, what else they've got with the way Grant Foster's been. Yeah, I mean, that team is probably going to run away with the WAC and be one of the top 3 or 4 mid majors and true at large contender at this point.
Yeah, Bryce Drew said preseason, like, hey guys, we can't expect too much from Ty and Grant Foster. We're gonna have to ease him in. Just like the ultimate rope up. He's out here just like one of the highest usage. He's burning threes. He's going hard to the rack, like with zero, fear or reluctance based on, his, very scary health past. I mean, it's basically, again, it's a projected Kansas level starter that's at Grand Canyon and that's like fully healthy and older and gotten better. And it's just like a terrifying notion for the rest of that conference, unfortunately. And they're also really well coached.
A team Matt has been high on for the last, ever since Craig Smith got hired. Utah.
Oh, can this be a Jim and Matt?
Jim's been high on them as well. Yeah, you guys have been too high on them in the past. But this year it makes sense. Utah, 29th in the net, 2-1 Q1, 1-1 Q2, no bad losses. I want the Utes in the tournament. They are good this season, legitimately good. Happy to see them building that resume. South Carolina.
And the addition of Davon Smith last game.
That's true.
He played 11 minutes off the bench, but he's going to add a little more speed,
Huge.
athleticism, dynamism in the backcourt. I think could give them that extra gear. Matt, he's not going to play 35 minutes a game, but I think having that option is important for them.
That's fine. Just don't take my guy Raleigh Worcester's minutes, baby. And yeah, I don't ever question Craig Smith as is you sure he's a good coach, man? He had one good year. No, he's a great coach. Stop it.
I never questioned him being a good coach.
No, not you. I think people out there are like, Manny to chill with his Craig Smith club. It's like, no, Craig Smith's a really good coach.
Oh, he's an unbelievable coach.
2016, right?
It's been a bit.
The West Coast Coach K. High bar there. Rick Majerus was a coach for a long time, so he won a few games as well.
Not a bad coach there. South Carolina, 44th in net, 1-1 Q1, no bad losses. Gamecocks have a shot. Nebraska, now they have a weak strength of schedule, so they're not quite as sturdy. They're 0-1 against Q1, but had to call them out because they're certainly better than I expected preseason. They just got that win. That at K-State win, I think, is a Q2 game right now. It could get better. It could jump into Q1. I expect it to. K-State's 90th in the net. I think they finished top 75. So 3-1 for Nebraska in Q2 games. They'll probably get that Q1 win with that game. Work to do, fellas. Xavier, 0-3 Q1, 0-2 Q3. Jim, that might be a no-chancer at this point. Thankfully, the Big East has so many opportunities that Xavier still could be okay, but they're not looking good.
Double bye game loss. The two Q3 ones are going to hurt, and without any quantity on the other end to offset it, it's going to be tough. They might need to be like 12-8 in the Big East. I'm not sure 11-9 gets it done. I guess it depends on who they beat, but man, they haven't gotten any heft so far this season.
Matt, NC State is number 67 in the net. Now, I know it's kind of weird inclusion, but they stuck out. 0-3 Q1. I thought they were a little bit better in my eyes of the resume portion of the things, and they really have not been that great from a tournament perspective. But your Wolfpack have some work to do.
Yeah, I think this team's you're right. They played BYU pretty competitively, which we know has aged pretty well. And the Tennessee game, I think they had it tied semi-late. I know Tennessee was mostly up in that game, but I think their schedule's been weird where it's like they played only bad teams and then the two really good teams. What killed them was the Ole Miss loss by 20. I think they need to probably win that one. They're not really in good shape going into ACC play. ACC is not as bad as people think. It's still not very good and not good enough to carry your resume going down the stretch with an okay non-con.
Yeah, there's 4 teams in the ACC where beating them actually matters.
There's 5 where it's oh, cool, sweet. Yeah, that's it.
Here's a foursome, maybe not this first team, but a foursome of teams that tournament regulars, at least last couple of years, and teams I expected to be in the tournament this season. Iowa, 62 in the net, 0-4 Q1. They just have not gotten it done to this point in major games. 1-1 Q2. We know they can blow out bad competition, but otherwise, kind of a rough season for the Hawkeyes here.
Just not good enough this year. And I think we joked about it. Fran always has plans on Sweet 16 weekend. He can make plans on opening weekend this year.
Ooh. Okay, these 3 teams: Miami, Texas, Kansas State. Miami 0-2 Q1. Texas 0-2 Q1. This surprised me. Texas's resume is non-existent. Really surprised me.
They have nothing. They have no beef.
They have nothing. And then K-State, no Q1 games to this point, but 2-3 in Q2 and 90th in net, like I mentioned earlier. Matt, chances all 3, Miami, Texas, K-State, miss the tournament. Go.
I'll defer to Jim real quick while Jim processes that. I have a slight tangent of that.
I'll say like
Texas,
0, but
yeah, I'd say close to 0, 10%. Texas and Iowa are in the same boat. Really good at beating crappy teams. They've not hit their home runs they needed to. Texas plays in a much better league, and so they have a much better chance in climbing that ladder. That's all.
Texas is less good at beating really crappy teams. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true.
At blowing them out. Yeah, it's probably close to 0 that none of them make it. K-State's neutral site win over Providence is 4 spots from being a Q1. The way Providence is playing, that one probably is going to get up into that, but long way to go on that speculation. I would imagine that one of these teams gets there. I'm gonna predict Texas of it, but we'll see.
And then Jim's section, the currently no chance squads.
Yeah, like teams that came into the year thinking, hey, tournament could be on the table.
OK State, Maryland, UCLA. Let's bracket those 2 real quick, and then LSU. Maryland, UCLA. There was a question in the chat. This game's obviously coming up on Friday. Who does better from this point on? And both teams looked horrible. Matt, I think Maryland's looked worse than UCLA personally. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go if I'm even betting this game on Friday, but what are your thoughts? Terps or Bruins right now, rest of the season?
I guess I'll go Bruins because there's upside and hope. I agree with you. I think UCLA's looked better, looked more inspiring. Like Maui, Jim brought up the point how good their defense looked. Yeah,
they played Marquette really, really close for the whole game.
I mean, OK State, Maryland to a lesser extent, UCLA, all young teams. I mean, LSU, just like, okay, we did the transfer flip again.
Yeah,
you just got Jalen Cook back. We'll see. That should probably help a lot. But like, if Jalen Cook's not the Messiah in the Bayou, that's a tough 0-2 2-year start there for Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, Kai, of those two, I'll say Maryland fares a little better going forward. But man, UCLA needs to get Burka back out there. Maybe that helps them some. Sebastian Mack's a star. He came off the bench against Northridge, which kind of surprised me, and he lit it up there. But their offense is non-existent besides him, and sometimes Dylan Andrews. They can't really play through the paint as well as they want to. So I think both are, like we said here, no chance to make the tournament, basically.
Yeah. All right, guys. So ends my long first thought again. Just 2 thoughts for me, so don't worry. Matthew, touch pass. Oh, sorry, Jim, touch pass to Jim for his second thought.
Yeah, I had my first one was short. I'll go the second one is kind of longer here, and then the third one's really quick. This is called the non-movers. This is teams in Ken Palm's rankings that have moved almost not at all since opening day, and that's by efficiency margin. They're within 0.5 of their opening margin. Now, some of these are teams that Ken was higher on or lower on at the start, so that might impact your own perceptions of them. But I just want to go quick through these guys and through these teams and ask you guys if you feel better or worse or the same. This implies that you should feel the same about them, but we'll see where you land. We're going to start with North Carolina. There's a bunch of blue bloods in this list, shockingly. They're narrowly better than their opening preseason ranking, opening preseason margin. Matt, I feel a little bit better, mainly due to Cadeau being like an actual stud passer, but the bench is still terrible. They still have no confidence in that group. Where do you land with North Carolina versus where you had them in the preseason?
I think I got this team right, like my guy Ken, and only for one reason. I got lucky in my late adjustment in my power rating and just general mental perception. When they killed FAU in the scrimmage, I was like, okay, this team might be really good this year. Like, I like the talent. And like, they're about what I thought, right? The defense is fine, but shaky, and the talent's much better. They seem to play more cohesively, but there's still real issues with this team, for sure.
Hi, what about you?
I do think they're slightly better than I thought going into the year, but still not ready to crown them. It's interesting, Jim. They're actually 3 spots down in Ken Palm, despite the adjusted efficiency margin going up.
Yeah, the rising tide around them has lifted the other boats just a little bit more. Their counterpart to the south, South Carolina, also right around where they started. Now, I feel way better about South Carolina because I was much lower than Mr. Pomeroy in the preseason. Kai, I assume you're kind of the same way.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good. I've come around on South Carolina this season.
Yep, the G.G. Jackson on-off numbers from last year are stunning, and you mentioned them. They have like an actual shot at building an NCAA tournament resume, whereas last year at this point, I think they're kind of drawing dead.
Done.
Yeah, Georgia Tech, next team in this group. I feel a little bit worse about them, but Matthew, Bayandongo, the freshman big, missed the
Yeah.
first 3 games. He had 12 points, 19 boards against Penn State. Might give them a little bit more defensive backbone than they've had. Much needed for a Stoudemire team. Where do you land with the Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, he looks good. I actually watched a little bit of the Cincinnati game, which was a disastrous first glimpse. He had 7 turnovers in 24 minutes in his debut, and they got lost. They got beat by like 35. But yeah, he's a nice player. Like that team is definitely still a amalgamation of random parts that he's trying to insert. But I think all of the hype around Damon Stoudemire is going to be as a good long term coach there. I think I'm in on that from what I've seen.
Yep. Yeah. Long term for sure. This year, still, not that
Cautiously
solid.
optimistic, but yeah.
Kai, what about our Gators? A team that,
Yeah.
we coming in, we were high on, we put them in the top 25. Maybe haven't quite gotten to that level. They didn't have Pullen for 3 games. Hanlogton missed time with an ankle injury. I'm a little tiny bit down on them because Riley Kugel's been not quite taking the leap that we thought, but they've got more
Yeah.
ball handling in the backcourt, more decision making than last year, and the size is there. So I still believe in them, of course, as a tournament team.
Yeah, I think my opinion's been the same. I'm not sure I've even changed the rating. I'm glad they got the Michigan win. They needed it because the resume, it's not fantastic right now. They don't have any marquee wins, so that was huge. Rooting for them, but yeah, about the same as preseason.
Yeah, it's weird. Riley Kugel's 2 biggest games, 25 against Baylor, 24 against Wake. They lost both of them.
Yeah.
They've won 4 straight where he's been kind of a non-contributor. Well, that's unfair, but a much more of a bit contributor. Something to monitor there with Florida.
Yeah. They're a deep team. They got to figure that out. Yeah, pulling back late in the mix. I just think they're going to take a little time, like another month, and we'll see awesome Florida. Stubbornly convinced Florida will be really good still.
Staying in the SEC, Matt, Big Blue Nation, Kentucky is almost exactly. They're 0.02 efficiency margin from where they were to start the season. But I feel much better about them because I've seen the ceiling outcome for them, and it's really, really high. I kind of knew and expected that they'd have some duds against bad teams, and that's shown. But they're starting to get their bigs back. And I mean, Reed Shepard, Rob Dillingham are just way better than I thought they'd be coming in.
Agree. And from what I've seen, Reeves has been excellent too. Like I think he's kind of the old hat veteran who plays like the young guns, kind of like reckless in some of his shots. But I think they've all been just better than I thought offensively, and the defense has been better than I thought as well. That's going to take some time with playing super duper small ball and a little different from how Cal's played, but the bigs back will obviously help that.
Yeah, I'm curious how they adapt the identity because they really had kind of established that up tempo, spread them out, take a bunch of threes, maybe a little weak at the rim. Can they continue that playing 40 minutes with Onyenso and Bradshaw at center? We shall see. Or will they play more small ball still?
Jim, can
Grayson
I
Havoc can play small. Little possession.
can I
simmers,
breaking
guess.
news real quick?
Please do.
Oregon State and Washington State, and Sam said in the chat, to the WCC next season.
The Mountain West wouldn't happen?
Basketball only.
Wait, yeah. So where the heck are their football teams playing? That's
Wow.
what it's my first instinct, but that's
Interesting.
kind of fun.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'll
Washington State,
text.
maybe Washington State can get a bid, Matt. Finally, win some close games in WCC.
Hey, I'll reach out to the Peyton ears, the Peyton heads to get the inside scoop here. I do love the pseudo alliance that Oregon State and Washington State have formed, though.
Yeah.
I'm just a big
How do you
fan of that.
think-
Like kind of like brothers against all odds.
How do you think Kyle Smith feels about WCC reaching out? You're back, bud. Welcome back. You thought you went to the Pac-12.
I know.
Come on back to the WCC.
And San Francisco's program now is like basically on the same. That is very odd. I mean, obviously I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go that far, but you look at the numbers the last few years, it's not that far off.
Yeah.
All right, let's go through rapid fire the rest of these. I don't want to belabor this thought too long. Kai, better or worse on St. John's?
Worse. Yeah. I was higher on preseason for sure. They're not quite there.
Yeah, defense is a major problem. RJ Luis might help, but I'm not sure it's going to fully fix it.
Yeah.
Matthew, your Blue Devils, they are right about where Ken had them. He was lower than everybody else. He looks pretty smart. How do you feel?
Yeah, he is. He's a smart guy. Sometimes I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm not as smart as Ken. And this one, he's right. I don't feel like it about Duke, and I've probably gone too far, like bearish. They're probably a little better than I have them perceived in my mind right now, but I've just been really turned off because I had super high expectations for this team. And I think I'm just mostly bummed out by Shire as a coach, who I thought was better than Billy Donovan. And I still don't.
Yeah, you sure
I
did.
fully reacted that. It's probably been my worst take of the year. Fully redacted that take if possible. And, it's just a pretty talented team with moments and flashes, but no real long-term excitement for me. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Kai, San Diego State, a team that I bold taked might miss the tournament.
Great call.
I guess I said that in the preseason. They survived Irvine and UC San Diego, which is huge. How do you feel about them?
I guess a little lower. I was expecting to be better than they performed this season, but I'm still on board. This team's good. They don't have any bad losses. You mentioned the close calls, but I still think they're a good team.
Where do they rank in the Mountain West to you? New Mexico, Colorado State, Boise State, Nevada, etc.
Oh boy, I still think they're number one.
Wow. I think I got them 3, Matthew. How about that?
Yeah,
Colorado State might be above them. I think they're better than New Mexico.
Okay.
New Mexico's
right.
better. Colorado State's better. I think they're better than Nevada, even though Nevada fans are screaming how good they are this year. I still don't believe Nevada's better than last year's team, even though the numbers indicate that they are. I'm not ready to accept.
Hey, spanking St. Mary's, beat Washington.
Yeah, I know.
Those are good wins.
The resume is actually fine.
Losing to BYU and Grand Canyon's not terrible.
The resume's fine. If they had dropped both of those bye games, 62 to 61 instead of winning 63-62.
Yeah.
I guess not bye game, UC San Diego, but yeah, drop those 2. But it looks fine now.
The Tritons had him. Yep. Come on.
Marquette, I feel a little bit worse about them. Just haven't gotten the emergence of Joplin or Ross or really a third perimeter piece. Sean Jones' offensive game hasn't come along besides just being super duper fast. And then last, Florida State, I felt better. Now I feel way worse. Cameron Fletcher tears his ACL and they get Primo Spears eligible, and that's like a double negative for them. You might think adding Primo Spears is a positive. I don't. I think he's a losing player. So no bueno. Guys, any disagreements there on Marquette or Florida State?
I'm excited to bet Marquette coming up here soon. They've fallen too far. Stevie Mitchell being out, I think, might be actually key for them. He's a good defender. He's been out last 3 games. Still a really good team. They dropped 9 spots in KenPom from the Providence loss. I mean, get out of here, dude. They're still really good.
Yep, I tend to agree. His ball pressure is kind of like them having him Chase Ross and Sean Jones on the floor at the same time was like, oh my God, the pressure, and they can't really bring that same kind of heat. But that's it, Matthew. We'll go to you for your second thought.
Excuse me. Which thought? Well, no, just a quick one. Oh yeah, my guys, chapter 6, a recurring section. Just one name to mention in this week's breakdown. It's a callback to a guy I fell in love with last year. I was singing his praises down the stretch. Indiana fans remember him from the first round bout against Kent State, which is where he plays. Mr. Chris Payton, a guy who was on breakout watch list all over the place and has basically played at a level that's warranted that. But Kent State hasn't really had like the same non-con hype that they got last year, where they had, more. I think they had a couple of big wins, almost beat Houston. This year they were in that double OT loss to James Madison at home. They've lost to Missouri State by 4 and Charleston in a close one. They just haven't quite put enough beef on the resume to get like eyeballs on Payton, but he's an absolute bananas athlete, just a fun, skilled player. If you have a chance to watch him, hopefully you do in the tournament this year, because I kind of believe that Kent State might quietly be the best team in the MAC, a conference that's kind of been down-ish from what I thought. We'll see what Akron has to say about that. Now with Ali Ali back and cleared, they're probably the perennial favorite, but I still think Kent State might be the most complete team. And if so, I'd like to see a revenge tour for Mr. Payton in March. Just a fun, do everything, jump out of the gym type of guy. That's it.
I hope he beats Oregon tomorrow, Matthew. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Travel well, Kent. Travel well.
All right, stealing back the ball for my last thought here. Free throw shooting, guys. I want to talk free throw shooting. Just it's one of the easiest parts of the game, and D1 players should be good at it. And yet, entire teams seem to be bad at it. So these are the best 5 free throw shooting teams in the country and the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. The best 5. There are 5 teams nationally that are shooting over 80% from the line. That's fantastic. Applaud these wonderful teams. Bellarmine, 82.4%. They're number 1. No surprises there. Stetson, 82.2. Shout out A-Sun for the 1 and 2 spots. Now, I don't think Stetson gets the line a whole lot, but they are shooting him well when they get there. And how about Villanova? A hair under 82%, and yet they still can't win. games against Philadelphia schools. I wonder why that is.
Third straight year in the top three. Last 2 years
Yeah.
they were number one. And I mean, they've had roster turnover. It's not like it's Colin Gillespie in his 9th year still ranking number one. It's crazy how much like they just, I don't know if it's obviously recruiting, but there's a confidence thing there too.
How about North Texas? Not what I expected. A hair over 80% this year at 80.3, and then Hofstra, 80.1%. So I'd say 4 of those teams check out, Jim. The North Texas one surprised me.
Yeah, I guess, and a lot of being a great free throw shooting team is avoiding your worst shooter being at the line a lot. And
There you
I
go.
think we're going to talk about that with the teams you're mentioning at the worst of the shooting teams. But yeah, North Texas got some guards that knock down shots. Edwards, the bench killer, their most recent JUCO addition that dominates with his scoring, is another terrific free throw shooter to their arsenal.
The worst shooting teams, free throw shooting teams. 6 teams in the country are sub 60% as a team. How is this even possible? Army, the worst team in the country, 52.6% as a team. Now, they don't shoot a ton of free throws at all, but that's ridiculous. Siena, 56.1%, had a horrible year this year. Mississippi Valley State is 56.4%. Rhode Island, 58.7%, definitely one of the reasons they have been held back with a more talented, seemingly team this season. Western Michigan is 59%, and then Houston Christian, 59.2%. A lot of mid-majors in that list, Matthew. We're not calling them out. You just saw some mid-majors in the top of the list. But you can't shoot sub 60, man. You just can't.
Well, you can ask. I just did the research here. SLU in 2019, was that the Jordan Goodwin,
Hassan
French?
French, yeah,
Hassan
shot like
French.
38% or whatever.
57% as a team for the whole year, Kai. Now, I'll have you know that the data tells us that actually through this point in the season, it's one of the best free throw shooting years in
Good.
history. Typically, kids get better as the year goes on, as you'd expect. So I like that general, hey, well, it'll only get more, aesthetically pleasing to our eyes as the year goes on. But yeah, like Army, come on, troops. I know there's bigger, you're fighting the good fight, and there's bigger battles, that we need you to fight. But conquer those demons at the charity stripe first. My goodness, that's not good.
Yeah. Like Siena, the only guy that gets to the line for them is their big dude who shoots 53%. And unfortunately, their point guard
There you
shoots
go.
58% himself. But like, if it's mainly one guy getting to the line a ton and he can't make any, you're going to look really bad here, and it's going to be frustrating to bet on. So, Matt,
Yeah.
this kind of goes back to your know your role big guys. Like, if you're a catch and finish big, you also should be able to make your free throws, which is a super underrated Zach Edey skill. I'll sneak that.
Yes, it is. I agree. Zach Edey is awesome. I love Zach Edey. I'm tired of any Zach Edey slander. I won't have any of it. He's phenomenal. He makes free throws. He's 7'12". He shouldn't make, like, no person that big should make free throws at that rate. It's very impressive.
No. Finally, a couple notables right here. St. Mary's, 60% this season. And then Arizona State, 62%. Yikes. Guys, can't have it. Can't
Yeah,
have
the
it
St.
for
Mary's
these two
thing
teams.
is really alarming, right, Matt? That's like a team I expect to be like Villanova,
Yep.
mega fundamental every year, and they got nothing there. And it's 2 straight years for them, but for a while they were top 50 every season.
Is it because all their bigs are the ones shooting the free throws? Like Mahaney and Gus aren't getting there. And I mean, are they even good free throw? I guess Gus is probably a good free throw shooter, but he's not.
Yeah, Saxon's at
Crashing the rim.
60%. Gus is at 68%, but it's largely a Saxon driven stat on that one.
And Kai for Arizona State, Bobby Hurley was, I think, a career 80% free throw shooter at Duke. So that has to drive him absolutely crazy. But I guess everything drives him crazy. So he's probably that.
It's true. All right, that's my last thought. Who are we on, Jim? Last thought here?
Yep. Last quick one. This is inspired by a Ken Pom tweet where he talked about how the top 4 have really blown away the rest of the country so far from an analytical margin perspective. The gap between number 4 and number 5 is bigger than the gap between number 5 and number 26. So that tells you how far ahead the top 4 teams are, and that's Arizona, Purdue, UConn, and Houston. My question to you guys is, do you agree with this perception? Is this a super top-heavy year with the top 4 teams, or they're a lot better? Does your eye test match this? Matthew, I'll start with you. Or is it a lot more balanced than the numbers might be lying a little bit based on some blowout performances?
I don't want to say they're lying through their teeth at us, but I do think they're a little bit exaggerated. And that's mostly rooted in the fact that I think like teams 5 through what was it? You said 25, Jim, 5 through 15 are
Five
closer
to
to that top
26.
5 to 26. I'd say teams 5 through 15, 5 through 20 even are closer to that top 4 than those numbers indicate, just based on my own anecdotal eye test evidence and my own power rating numbers, I suppose. I just we'll see. It's early. We'll see. The conference part of the year is a double-edged sword because you learn things, but you also it distorts true learnings from the non-con because you play every team in the same league and it's actually whatever. All that is to say, I think it's a little closer. I think there's more teams that like are capable of winning the tournament, if you want to frame it that way, than just those 4 teams.
Kai, your perception of this, is the top that much further away?
Yeah, I think it's this year. Yeah, I do. These 4 teams are the best teams in the country. I feel pretty good about that. Um, will it be at the end of the year? I'm not a fortune teller, Jim, but these 4 teams are the ones that I want in my national title portfolio because they're good on both sides. It's like they're not just one trick pony. They're not lopsided. They're really good on both ends of the floor, and it's shown.
Yeah, I think the best way to illustrate how far apart these 4 are is if I ask you who the 5th best team is. I guess most people would say Kansas, or maybe even higher than 5th.
Yeah.
I certainly don't believe they're that high, Matt. I know you're not as big of a buyer on Kansas either. But like Matt, who do you think the 5th best team is?
I was just gonna say I think it's probably Marquette, but I think your point, Jim, I
Really?
would re-articulate your point as every team behind the top 4 has a very clear flaw. Like Marquette, Kansas, Creighton, Kentucky, Tennessee, uh, Gonzaga, Auburn, and who's yeah, you're right. Actually, kind of be right. Alabama. I actually might go to Kai's side here. Maybe the top 4 are just ahead.
Oh, we love it. We talked him into it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm more with Kai. Where,
Baylor,
like
yeah.
those are my top 4 rated teams, and I think I haven't looked at the ATS record for those 4, but I imagine it's quite good. I think Arizona is like undefeated. UConn is 7-4.
Well, till Purdue.
Yeah. Yeah. So like 8-1. So yeah, really, really good ATS records. Unsurprising. They've outperformed expectations while also being elite. That's my last thought. Matt, do you have another one, or are we done here?
No, I'm going to accumulate more evidence for my thought and holster it till next week. I need more exhibits. I only had 2. And I think it needs a bigger fact base to share. So pass.
All right.
All right, Kai, that's it.
Let's go to game previews real quick. Not many to hit on. Not an enormous slate this weekend. We're talking bragging rights though on Friday, of course, because Jim and I went to Mizzou, and it's one of our biggest games of the year. It's against Illinois, Mizzou versus Illinois. They play in St. Louis every single season. Mizzou has been very good the last several years in this event. I think they've won 4 or 5. I could be wrong. Check me on that stat, Jim. Kimpom has a spread at 10, and golly, if you give me that, I'm taking the Tigers, Jim, despite how bad they looked against Seton Hall.
Yeah, it's a great atmosphere. One of the true awesome neutral sites because it's fully split. It's like a college football neutral site game where you've got 2 very distinct color schemes too. Your black and gold on one side, your orange, blue,
Awesome.
orange and blue on the other. It's great, great atmosphere. Yeah, I think Mizzou can compete here. I know Illinois has been like kind of a dominant, especially defensively, taking away easy baskets inside, and Mizzou actually struggles to create easy baskets, so maybe that's less of a problem for them. They're going to launch up a bunch of threes. I think Illinois can be a little prone to the pressure. Mizzou's probably going to have to press and try to generate turnovers and get points off of that, points via their defense. But I think that's possible, and I think Mizzou can compete much better in the paint than they did last year, Matt. They were still able to win. So, yeah, 10 points is just too many. I don't think Mizzou's going to win outright, really, but I feel decent about taking plus 10 if that's offered.
I do too. I'm not going to because I still am very impressed with Illinois coming out of the FAU game, and they haven't done anything since then to make me to back off that. Like the Tennessee, they lost by 7. No harm in that. I think that game was very competitive, and they just really didn't shoot the ball as well as they did against FAU. The question is, do you think that their shooting, as Jim was alluding to, is an anomaly? Terrence Shannon has already started to cool off a little bit, but still shooting at 42% this year. The key for them is Coleman Hawkins, and I think that's huge in this matchup as well. Played much better his last 2, I believe. He actually made some shots last game as I'm looking here at the box scores. Coleman Hawkins is like the ultimate X factor for Illinois. Like he has to play well in this game, and big picture, he has to play well for this team to be awesome.
Yeah, go Mizzou. That's all I got to say.
Tigers.
On Saturday, the biggest game is Florida Atlantic against Arizona, one of the teams we just discussed. It's in Vegas. Implied spread is around 6 per Ken Palm. Matt, your Owls, your burrowing Owls against the mighty, mighty Wildcats, which might be my number one team still in the country. Your thoughts?
I hate the location for my burrowing Owls just in general. Arizona gets their, again, return. They played the semi-away game at Purdue, and now they come back and get their semi-home in Phoenix, basically in their backyard. FAU has to go across country. This game will be competitive because FAU, as you mentioned, and as we saw against Illinois, they have this sort of they keep coming at you with just tough shots and their depth, and they're the ultimate cockroach. It's going to be a tall task to actually beat Zona with the sheer size up front. Because when they take Golden off the floor, like Rosado is my boy, like my actual boy, but he cannot defend the rim. And so that's a problem. I think Arizona can exploit that if they get Big Vlad in foul trouble.
Yeah, I think we see Keisha Johnson and Pella Larson post-ups galore, the way Illinois did with Damask and Terrence Shannon. FAU also kind of struggled in transition defense. I mean, Shannon is almost a singular beast in that way, but if Keisha Johnson had a career high against Purdue, he could have another one here. He could put up 25 to 30 against that smaller four-man that FAU typically plays, or they're going to have to play Brendan Lorient a lot, or Trey Carroll, which I don't think is great for them, Kai. So yeah, I think that's got to be Arizona's game.
Oh, I'm sorry. This game's in Vegas. What am I saying? Why did I say semi-home? The Arizona plays in the semi-home against Alabama tonight.
That's
and
right.
then they go to Vegas for the weekend.
I will say, Matt, it might feel semi-home. Arizona travels well.
Right, yeah.
They play the Pac-12 there, a Pac-12 tournament. It's much, much closer than FAU, so it might feel semi-home.
The Boca faithful will turn up. I know they will.
I think I like Arizona too, but boy, I don't like fading FAU as a medium dog. That doesn't sound great. It's a really good team. Just real quick, a Big East two for Butler is at Providence, the Dunk, Providence -5 per Kimpum. Seton Hall is at Xavier, the Cintas Center, Xavier -7. Well, the Dunk makes me think, Jim, that Providence is the way to go in that one. Really tough place to win. And Butler, while good, I think it might be their first true road game. Got to check me on that one.
I cannot confirm that. They lost by 20 at Michigan State, unfortunately. So they did struggle that one time on the road. Providence has very much married their style well to playing at the Dunk. Like, I'm not going to say they get like this crazy home whistle, but they play super physically defensively, keep you away from the rim.
Yep.
And it is hard for a ref to call 14 fouls and a half against Providence. And it's a smart way to do it. Their defense is extremely disciplined, and Devin Carter's like one of the best individual perimeter defenders in the entire country. They have size, but I also think that has worked well for them. It's going to be a team with wide splits at home and on the road, partially because of that, Matthew. So all that to say, Providence at home, yeah, I'm a friar there.
Yeah, I kind of got West Virginia under Bob Huggins in the glory peak days vibes. That's a little extreme of a comparison, but certainly that angle is real, and we've seen that play out as a very effective strategy to be awesome at home, which is huge in a power conference as good as the Big East is. Just want to say I love Gary DeWall. I watched a little bit of this game last night. Just a dime dropping machine adds a dose of flair and pizzazz to this offense. I think it kind of lacks, to be honest, at times. So, we know that Kim English's offenses don't always, look great aesthetically to the eye, but I think when you have a guy like DeWall who can get in there and break down defenses, dish it, could be a game changer in this matchup.
As for the other one, this won't be 7. Openers on Xavier lines all season have been 2 points shaded towards the other team. I think they're just taking a haircut every time for the front court injuries, and it's been correct. Kim Pum clearly has them a little overrated still. I'll lean towards Seton Hall if it's 7. I will stay away if it's not. Matthew.
Yeah, Xavier at home. The fact that they almost beat Houston at home and did beat Cincinnati. I know they lost to 2 bad teams there, but like against good teams, that place is awesome. And I'm not going to ever bet against Xavier ever again at the Cintas. And Seton Hall, I can't figure out. Like, I saw him play. Jimmy and you were about to pull our hair out watching him play Monmouth, and then we saw them play Mizzou, and it looked like a different team. So I don't know what Seton Hall is at this point. It seems like maybe Holloway got something out of them after that Monmouth shutdown, and we'll see what they do tonight against UConn. But I have no take on this game, no strong conviction or prognostication.
Yeah, Seton Hall starters had an effort problem in that Monmouth game, and that was probably because it was Monmouth, the bye game, and not a massive power conference opponent like Mizzou or hosting UConn. That said, Kai, if it does take the haircut and it's down at 5, I will probably take Xavier. So I hope that
Yep.
the books go that route and lower it because I still think Xavier's slightly better team, and then you add in the home court of conference play. So we'll see where it lands, but
Yeah.
I just think Xavier's lack of bigs aren't actually going to get punished by this Seton Hall team. Like they don't have a
Strange.
dynamic force inside. They're more like bigger guards, Kadari Richmond and Dawes hitting shots, Davis. So I think Xavier can handle that and not get taken advantage of inside.
I'll agree. I don't think Seton Hall is that good still, despite the Mizzou game. All right. Good pod, guys. Let's finish up with some reviews. We'll try to go as quick as possible. Now, again, we might have read these reviews before. I seriously can't remember.
They were such good reviews that we had to do it again. They were so glowing.
Even if we did, whatever, talk about them again. Aaron Beletsky, best podcast. Hooray. Almanac's great. Okay, 3 thoughts. Kyle Neptune is a basketball terrorist. Hilarious. 2, do you think it would be a worthwhile thing for the NCAA to pursue to force every team to play at least one game against every conference? I would say yes, Jim, I suppose, but that's kind of tough to...
It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but I think I would love a schedule czar, somebody that's like trying
Yes,
to even it
there you
out,
go.
force everybody to play something somewhat equal. Can't stack your schedule with bye games. You can't play all home games. You need to play a road game at a mid-major once every 2 years or something like that. I would love to see some more regulation on that.
Third point here, I don't remember my take on this, but I guess Ken Pom comments in Miami. I suppose I might have implied that Miami was a media darling last season prior to their tournament run. And then something about Ken Pomeroy crapping on Miami.
He tweeted something, Kai, about how after they got blown out at Kentucky, it's like, oh, everybody thinks Kentucky's
yes.
great rather than Miami's bad. So this kind of dates back to that. And
Yes.
to the reviewer, I would say I think that was Ken firing back at people last year saying
Yes.
your system sucks because they went to the Final Four, and he's saying, well, look at him now, like
Yeah.
might
It's a
have been an
very
aberration
good
last year.
Kai McKeon, Ken Pomeroy handshake emoji tweet. That's just what this review is, I think, which is he's right. And you both were right. It's a
Yeah,
nice job.
I still think Miami was overrated going into last year, just based on their previous run. And this year, I didn't change my opinion. I've said it since the summer that Miami's not a top 10 team or top 15 team. So that's just overreaction to the tournament, I guess, is the summary on Miami. Cool guy, 464-738-38:7 says Jay Billis. Hey nerds, love the show. The host seems to know yeah. Much deeper podcast than the usual AP Top 25, Big 10 or Big 12 debates. He has to ask, is Jay Billis good at his job? I understand he's good, but he seems to have a rooting interest in every game he calls. Jay always seems to be rooting for the team I'm not, and Jay's team usually wins. Or maybe Jay just hates the Big East, like the anti-John Fanta. My question is, are there any commentators that you guys have to mute? We'll go Matt first. Dan Dockich is no longer calling games. That was number 1 for me. Jay Williams has joined the list, Matthew. Your thoughts?
No, I just typically go to bat for all color commentators. I think the claims of bias.
Except one on Jim's list.
Okay, Jim Pride's a good one. But the Joe Buck hate is just stupid, right? Like it got
he's great.
a whole
He's
national
not even a
joke
color
about it.
commentator though.
Whatever. Or this kind of bleeds into the Jay Billis thing. I don't think Jay has any biases. I feel like it's sometimes actually been biased against Duke to prove that he's not biased for Duke. I think Jay's good.
If you have to try to fight a bias, you're inherently biased. Jay should not do Duke games. That's my opinion.
No,
I don't think
that's
he needs to
stupid.
be
Jay's
the tier
good.
1A.
No.
He's good. He's not like the
Jay's good.
untouchable best color guy in the entire country. Like Bill Raftery's definitely better. I don't love him. Doesn't sound like he's having as much fun anymore. He's getting a little preachy, not quite Jay Williams. He has fun with Schulman, but other stuff, it sounds more like I have to go to work to him, to reference his tweets.
That's fair. I actually buy that. I buy that tone change recently.
He
That's,
doesn't love it. Like even Dickie V, started to, maybe not have as much of a grasp on the basketball, but my God, the joy was always there. And I just enjoyed that as a color commentator way more. My mutes are Dan Dockich and King McClure.
King McClure is horrible. I don't know how he has a job. It's actually crazy how bad he is, Jim.
Hi, we want to work at ESPN.
He
Stop.
fumbles over his words. He doesn't offer any insight. I don't get who does he know? He's not good at his job, man. King McClure, public enemy number one.
Who's the best in the biz? Best in the biz.
Dalen Cuff.
Cuff's fantastic.
It's
Robbie
He's the best
Hummel's
host, play-by-play, and color commentator. He's somehow the best at all.
We gotta elevate.
I think Robbie Hummel's great too.
And Robbie's great too. Robbie's great, fantastic.
I like Bill Walton in the chat. I'm a huge Bill Walton fan.
Yeah, Bill's
especially
for
after
sure
meeting
Bill.
him at the MAC last year.
I don't want Bill Walton announcing a big game. I want him announcing like a goofy game after dark. Like if he did a Final Four game, I would be just as angry as everybody else.
He can do big Pac-12 games. I'm fine with it, but I don't need him crossing the Rocky Mountains to call big games. He can just stay west.
Boilermaker State of Mind says, best college football podcast. Love all the mid-major talk. Appreciate the help on gambling. Question with the most conference titles in the Big Ten, multiple players of the year, All-Americans, and all that jazz. If Purdue wins a national title, would they be considered a blue blood program? I don't care about the blue blood debate, Jim. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I guess I don't truly care that much either, but I understand Purdue fans probably want to care about it. I don't think you can be blue blood with just one though. I think you need more titles than that, and they'd be that next tier down, but just not quite there to me.
Blue blood, Matthew. Oh no, Purdue and Indiana. There's not room for both of you.
Well, there's plenty of room. Table can always expand. Can I pull up a little adjacent add-in?
SN Zerate? I don't know. Best CBB analysis out there. Great discussion on hoops. Good not overreacting to overnight results, but also great at admitting when teams change their expectations. Ooh, I like that. Good compliment. For 2023-24 Indiana, that's Matt's team. He says, I think a reasonable comp and expectations is somewhere between 21-22 Providence from an efficiency standpoint or 22-23 Illinois. Jim, I'll let you go first. Matt's thinking about that.
I mean, hilarious that this review came in before Indiana needed like a 14-0 run to beat Morehead State by 1 at home. They just, there's definitely a play down to competition element. They have an engagement, a focus problem, and they're just limited in terms of style where like they don't have the offensive pop to go on big runs against bad teams because they can't shoot and they overhelp off shooters. So they're very matchup specific too, Matthew. I still am not really sold that Indiana makes the tournament. Maybe I'm too low.
The issue is that they have scheduled, I'm not saying these are great mid-majors, but North Alabama and Kennesaw are good enough to probably scare the crap out of IU 2 more times before the Big Ten play.
I mean, if Army's good enough to scare the crap out of them.
Yep. Wright State was kind of close. I guess they got Harvard pretty good, but that was a terrible spot for Harvard.
Harvard was up at half.
Morehead, yeah.
Harvard lost their big guy at halftime to a wrist injury. So,
but like again, the Big Ten is where IU will look better, and against good teams, IU will look better. It's just as Kai mentioned, we know what IU is. They're a team that's going to play really well up in competition, and they just have no idea what to do when the bear sees the bunny in the woods. The bear just bats bunny around, type of stuff. Just doesn't know what to do.
They're a Big Ten team. They need to play teams that can't shoot just like them.
West Coast Money says best sports pod, not just college basketball, sports. We like that. Huge fan, best in business, all that. Just because it seems like you're now regularly on it, let's make sure we review and like these guys on Wednesdays on BBOC. Yeah, definitely. We are on Action Network's Big Bets on Campus podcast every Wednesday. So do check that out. We were given thoughts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday games. Let's see here. If you guys can give out plays in your socials when you get a chance, it'd be totally appreciated. We are holding off till we get paid. That's the gist there. He says, after work, I like to ride the bike for an hour plus. I've started watching old games. 09 Villanova Pitt, 08 Memphis, Kansas, etc. Any teams, games you'd recommend, preferably in the 2000s. Also, can we get a quick futures update, maybe some fresh conference title leans? Jim, my brother has sent me a few of these videos. The early 90s Missouri Tigers. That's where you should watch YouTube videos of.
There you go.
West
Best game I've ever watched, favorite game I've ever watched is still 2010 NCAA tournament, Xavier, Kansas State, Sweet 16.
Yep.
Gus Johnson, Len Elmore doing a game of big shots back and forth, like between the final 5 minutes of regulation, OT, second OT. It was absurd, the shots that got made. And you get to see the shorts that were like at people's shoes. I rewatched it earlier and it's fantastic. So that's my definite one game recommendation.
Matt, 6 overtime game, Syracuse and UConn.
Yeah, very
up there.
good.
You got a lot of time.
The Miracle Minute is the one that always stands out for me. Jay Williams, not to bring back the glory days of Jay Williams
boy.
after you just took shots at him, but yeah, the Miracle Minute against Maryland. For what
Yeah,
year
that's
that
back when Jay Williams
was?
liked basketball.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
he was good at basketball and was like in his heyday of bucket getting. They come back down 10 at Maryland. It's a pretty insane comeback, and Jay Williams goes nuts. It's I think the best, most invested game I've ever been watching live. I remember that vividly. So
Last couple here, guys. William 515151. The Freaking Goats is the title. Hooray! Hey, he's been listening since 2019. That's fantastic. Thank you. Wanted to know who is each of your favorite niche or lesser known players in recent history to watch. For example, he loved watching Nick Mayo at Eastern Kentucky a few years ago. Wow, that's a good one. Chris Clemens, of course, for Campbell. Mike Daum, who became kind of a household name at South Dakota State, came to mind immediately. Jim has some good ones written down.
Yeah, I said Santi Aldama at Loyola, Maryland. He was niche then. Now
Yeah.
he's a Memphis Grizzly, and everybody knows who he is. Terry Taylor at Austin P also ended up making the pros. But then Tukey Brown at Georgia Southern.
Great
Just
answer.
an awesome point guard. He played for Mark Byington, who happens to be awesome and has a top 25 team at James Madison now. And then Jake Stevens, VMI and Chattanooga, kind of a get your Nikola Jokic comparisons out, but he kind of had that to him. So love those guys.
Matt, who was the Central Michigan guy? We used to have a
Marcus Keene.
Marcus Keene.
Marcus
There it
Keene.
is. That guy.
His,
was
who's his
awesome.
sidekick, Bryson? What was his name?
Oh, the other guy?
Yeah, move on.
I forgot.
His Robin was good too.
Okay, last two here. I didn't ask Max. I don't think he has an answer, unless he does right now. Think about it.
Oh, I do. Yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking on name. Tyler Harvey. Is that too far back?
I like
No,
that.
not at
Eastern
all.
Washington.
Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
I know that's Stuckey's guy
Dinky
too,
Joy
that's right.
from
Yeah.
Eastern
There you go,
Washington as
T-Dub.
well. Yeah. All right. TV deal bubble. Sports czar is what his title is. If you had all power in college basketball, what major changes would you make? Especially interested in how many D1 teams you would have. Would you arrange conferences, sizes, etc.? Jim did write an article many, many moons ago about conference realignment, making them all make sense on 3-man-weave.com. I'm fine with having this many teams. Really, I don't care. I would just make it so the NCAA tournament never goes away.
Yeah, this is a good off-season pod topic, so I'm not going to go into like the 8 million changes I would make. So we'll holster this one. I really like the question. We will hit that in the off-season.
And then finally from Twitter, MC, why the extremely high totals this year? Is it simply tempo? Before, totals in the 150s were considered extremely high. Now 150s, 160s are somewhat common. Yes, efficiency is the answer, as Jim wrote to me and Matt here. I mean, the three-point
Kids are
line,
making free throws. Not really.
free throws, but I think guys adjusting back to the free throw line is important. Or excuse me, 3-point line is important. Guys getting better at shooting, and the move back is not nearly as bad as it was when it started. It's definitely part of it. I guess tempo's kind of up. I don't know the
It's a
tempo
little
stats from
up,
back
but
then.
It's
the
the second
charge rule has been big.
Charles
rule's
Road,
been
of
really huge.
course, yeah.
It's all-time low turnover rate ever, and it's mostly because of the non-steal turnovers, which are charges, an example of. And then Matt, your free throw point is spot on. So people are more efficient. There's more talent in the sport because there's a ton of guys playing their
Older,
fifth year.
28-year-olds.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too.
All right, that does
Or
it.
freshmen. No.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the live podcast. If you did, or if you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, etc., thank you, of course. Please do subscribe. Hit the like button on the channel at YouTube. Go subscribe there as well. We will see you guys next week. If you want to come back for a best bet show, we'll let you know if it's Friday or Saturday. Check out our Twitter, 3MW_CBB, or, of course, just follow the channel, and you shall know. Till then, have a great weekend. Have a great holiday. See